You're listening to Everything's Canceled podcast with your hosts,
Herman
and Lorena. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening to right now and follow us on Instagram at Everything's Canceled podcast. In each episode, we discuss topics in detail that could be triggering for some listeners, so please listen with care.
All content provided in this podcast is for general information and entertainment purposes only. Any copyrighted content reproduced in this podcast is done so in accordance with Section 107 of the Copyright Act, allowing fair use and is not an infringement of copyright. Any information discussed referring to specific incidents are allegations only, unless proven otherwise in a court of law. Due to the changing nature of laws, rules, and regulations, the hosts will make no representations to the accuracy or completeness of any information in this podcast and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, nor the availability of this information, for any losses, injuries, or damage from the display or use of this information.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Herman.
Hello.
Hello. Hope everybody enjoyed both of those Garth Brooks episodes.
Yeah, Garth Part 2. More Garth than we were expecting.
We're still getting a lot of feedback in our Instagram messages, but we're done. We're over it. We're moving on until we hear more about that case.
Yeah, that's all to say, I think, until we get some real info and until that case goes to court or whatever.
It's always interesting to see which of our episodes piss our listeners off the most and which ones people really disagree with our takes on versus others.
We thought we were being real controversial with some of them, like Drake Bell or some other ones we thought we'd get some shit for, and people were real defensive of Shia. Or Pee-wee. I think it was hard to suspend my own love of Pee-wee.
The new Pee-wee documentary is coming out. I'm very excited to see that.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing that Pee-wee documentary.
I think that...
very interesting.
From what I can see, I think that we're going to get a little bit more information or some direct quotes about him actually coming out as gay, which is a big deal because we thought he kind of took that to his deathbed. So instead of speculating on his sexuality, we might actually have some hardcore facts. Not that it was hard. I don't know. I feel like Pee-wee's just so gay that... But anyways.
So who's canceled this week, Lorena?
Neve Schulman, but kind of Catfish. It may not be coming back.
Yeah.
What's your...
Neve Schulman. Yeah, so Catfish is not on right now, right?
Well,
or there is not a new season coming of Catfish? Is Catfish canceled?
Well, it's kind of on pause for a couple of reasons. One being that Neve just got in a bad accident. And two, that they're in between seasons. So Cammy...
Oh, yeah, I forgot about his accident. Oh, yeah. I can sympathize. I'm sure we'll get there, but...
Yeah, so Cammy is just left, and she's been a co-host for several years now, and they're in between seasons. So I'm actually not sure where we go from here, if we're actually getting another season of Catfish, or if it's done. Another
co-host who's going to roll out a new co-host?
Yeah, so I don't know the status on Catfish indefinitely, but currently we're either in between seasons or on a pause or whatever's going on. What is your relationship with Neve and Catfish?
Talk about Neve. How do we know who Neve is?
Hi, I'm Neve. A couple years ago, I fell in love online. Turns out my crush wasn't who I thought she was. Not only that, my brother and his filmmaking partner shot the whole thing and turned it into a documentary that was a pretty big hit. Suddenly, my inbox was exploding with emails. It felt like everyone on the internet wanted to tell me about their bizarre online romance.
I should just pursue every single one of these leads, and we should make a show of it.
So that's what we decided to do. Dear Neve, I'm in an online relationship with the greatest guy ever. One problem. We haven't met yet. I need the help of someone who's been through this experience before, and that's you.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, man.
I love her, I love Abby.
The connection we built is really something once in a lifetime.
The next step for us is to sort of dig in.
Yeah, go ahead and investigate. Let the research begin. Uh-oh, we got something.
Who is this person?
I don't know.
I just hope he is who he is.
This could just be another fake profile.
He says she's who she says she is. He's married. It means that the person she's been talking to is a fake.
Bad news.
She's a catfish.
I just don't understand what's going on.
Guys.
Hello?
Did you watch the original documentary? I think it was 2012.
I didn't see the documentary until the show had been out for a while. I think my relationship to Neve or Catfish is probably about exactly the same as everyone else's,
where I didn't see the documentary first. I saw the TV show first.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I think that's, we all saw this TV show and watched it for a few seasons and then got bored of it. And at some point I did see the original documentary as well. So I have seen it. And I guess that would pretty much lead us up to maybe like a couple of years ago. When did you really become the Catfish head that you became and forced me to watch every single episode of Catfish? Was that like the pregnancy?
No, day one.
Was that?
Day one, I've been a Catfish fan from the time the documentary came out. And so I just checked, it was 2010. And my ex-husband, I actually met him on Facebook, and we always got a lot of shit about, meeting online. How did you not know he was a catfish? How did you, that was a big word that was coming out at that time. So when that documentary came out, we wanted to watch it right away because we were just interested, and it was all about meeting on Facebook. And the idea of catfish was, I wasn't sick of it yet. We hear it all the time. Now it's like a word in the dictionary.
Yeah, it really coined the term, obviously.
Yeah, and so that documentary was 2010 and the show started in 2012, and I've been watching it from day one. Obviously, I took breaks. There were times I didn't have TV or whatever. And then, during my pregnancy, I binge watched all of them all over again and made you watch them all with me. So
they were on. It was inescapable. As much as I tried to avoid it, there was always a catfish, and there's always seems to be another catfish. There are so many episodes of Catfish.
Well, there's one season that has 100 episodes, but we're gonna get into that.
Well, then how many seasons are there?
Well, technically there's 9 seasons, but one of the seasons is 100 episodes. The other ones are like a normal amount of episodes.
There's a buttload of Catfish.
And that all comes into his cancellation. Okay, so Neve has been a pet project of mine because I just recently, years later after it happened, found out he had some sexual harassment allegations. And I was like, ooh, well, that might be a good one to do for the show since I'm a fan of Catfish. But it did sort of just become relevant again because Neve popped up on my Instagram because he had been in a cyclist accident. You've been in a cyclist accident. It piqued my interest. And then as soon as I find out about that, Cammie, who is my favorite co-host, leaves the show and everyone is speculating why. And I'm like, okay, let's just get into Neve. And turns out there's a lot more to Neve than I thought. And also, I just want to say right now, as much as I love Catfish, I've always hated Neve. So that tells you how much I love the show.
Okay.
I don't like Neve. His personality, I watch the show despite disliking him.
Sure. Okay.
Do you like him?
He's got a weasel vibe. Before I go any further, I have to express my massive level of sympathy for Neve's accident and where he is. So it's hard for me because I desperately want to talk shit about him and clown on him, but it's real hard for me to do so in his current state. So, we'll get there.
He's recovered. He's fine.
You never recover.
Okay, well.
The psychological damage.
Car wrecks and everything happen every day, and they happen to good people and bad people, and I'm not here to excuse my hatred for Neve.
It's not an accident when somebody else runs you over.
And not to give too much of a spoiler here, but my hatred for Neve ends up not being totally based in his sexual harassment allegations, and my hatred for Neve comes from a bunch of surface level shit that is less relevant in the news or whatever. For one, he looks like my ex-boyfriend that I hate, down to their mannerisms and everything, just identical. But I just always felt like his progressive views were very performative, and that would just grind my gears. It's just a performative male feminist, a white man constantly mansplaining.
Neve's white?
He's Jewish. Sorry,
ethnicity.
but he's not black. And when I'm talking about specifically, he would really mansplain women's issues and Black Lives Matter issues. And there's something just so grossly performative about it. It was just very over the top. He just needed virtue signaling to the extreme. Everyone needs to know. Every episode he's wearing a shirt with, and on one hand, all of that's great. I'm a social justice warrior myself, but I don't know. It just felt very gross. And we'll get into that. Some of the instances where I'm it's just way too much. And then also I felt it was performative that maybe on a day-to-day level, this man might be kind of gross in other ways. And turns out I think I'm right. So Okay, let's dive in. Neve. Who is Neve? So I actually just like wrote out a good timeline to write everything out in Neve's life. And my basic timeline goes 1984, Neve is born. Age 18, Neve gets a tramp stamp. So I just jumped those first 18 years. But no, Neve...
Did anything else happen there? The only significant thing is the tramp stamp. What is this tramp stamp of? Let's just get right to that.
It's a tribal swirly thing that takes up his whole lower back, like full-on tramp stamp. He did just get it removed.
Make sure that you save a photo of that to send to me that I can post on
He
Instagram.
has some quote about how there's a lot of things that are embarrassing about him on the internet for his children to see someday, but a tramp stamp will not be one of them. Like, he will remove this. This is something he will not embarrass his children with. So anyways, he just got it removed, which they mentioned in like a recent episode of Catfish. He comes in and Cammy's like, where you been? He's like, I just had my last tattoo removal session. And he's like quite proud of that. I did not know it was a full-on tramp stamp till I started digging in. But yes, more happened between his birth and that tramp stamp. So Neve, which is short for Yaniv Schulman, obviously his claim to fame is Catfish, the documentary and the TV show. He hadn't really done much before that. He was born in New York City to a Jewish family, and he has an older brother named Ariel, who is an actor and filmmaker. And that becomes relevant because when he does the original Catfish documentary with Max was best friends with his older brother, and Max was already a filmmaker. But Neve had started taking pictures and became involved with photography after he studied dance for 5 years.
I haven't been able to find a job in 6 years.
Huh. And what training do you have?
5 years of modern dance, 6 years of tap.
He attended the Sarah Lawrence College, studying photography and dance from 04 to 06 before he was expelled, which we're going to get into this cancellation.
So the site of the first Neve-related incident, right?
Yes, where he punched a female student who he had mistakenly mistook for a man. So backwards a bit, right as he started...
We're going to talk about that, obviously, right?
Oh, but it's a big one.
Background, okay.
So yeah, right before college, he gets this bold tramp stamp and then gets kicked out of college. And in the same year that he was expelled, he started photographing dance, and he got involved with the ballet community in New York. He is a founding member of the Young Leadership Committee for the youth organization Leave Out Violence. Quite ironic. And that brings us to the first Neve incident. In 2006, during his junior year at Sarah Lawrence, he was hired or volunteered, whatever, to take pictures at an event called the Sleaze Ball, which is a coming out dance celebrating the LGBTQ students that was held in like on campus in the cafeteria there. And he was coming on to take pictures during this event.
Yeah, so Neve is a student at Sarah Lawrence College, right?
Yes, a photography and dance student.
But doesn't his mother also works for the college, right?
Yes.
Is she on the faculty, or she's like some sort of like administrator, right? Because he's not just a student there. His family is connected to the college as well, right?
Yes. She lost her job because of this, though. I forgot to write in my notes exactly what she did on campus, but it was something with administration. She wasn't like a teacher.
Yeah, she's not faculty. She's administration at the college.
Yeah, and there's speculation that like her working there pulled strings to get him in there in the first place, and
obviously why that connection is important, because he has a family connection to the school. He's not just a student there.
Right. So anyway, so he's at the dance. He is taking pictures of queer couples dancing and kissing and everything else.
He was hired to work at this dance, right? As an official photographer for the dance.
Whether he was hired or volunteered, the school is aware that that is what he's doing. He is a photography student, and he is there to do this. So that is an important aspect of it. So
okay. I guess that's unclear, because I wasn't sure between when we were talking about this before whether he was like specifically hired, or now maybe he's a photography student, but he's like allowed to go take pictures there or something.
We're not going to get like super clear details on that, but I will go over what some other people's perspective of the situation is versus what his perspective is and what he writes in his book years later.
I do think that really does change like the character of the situation, whether he was specifically authorized or even asked to be there before, or whether it was up to him and he chose to take pictures there, and like that was simply like okay or not, because that kind of really is what in question, right?
Well, let's get into more details, because even if he had permission to be there and take pictures, if somebody went up to him and said, please don't take pictures of me, that would also change that anyways. So let's just get into the details that we do have. Which is that there's a woman who saw him taking these pictures of, according to her, and what she told magazines, is that she confronted him and said, you need to stop taking pictures of these people without their permission. This is her quote: I tapped his shoulder and he turned and hit me out of nowhere. I went down and he held me in a headlock and repeatedly punched me while I tried to get free. The impact broke my glasses and the rest of the night was a blur. I got off of the floor, talked to police, and then went home to sleep. When I woke up the next day, my face was bruised, I was hurt, and a friend urged me to go to the hospital, which I did. Neve says that he acted in self-defense, and he has this memoir that comes out in 2014. It's called In Real Life, Love, Lies, and Identity in the Digital Age, where he...
such an awful title.
This is his quote about it. While I was photographing, an individual who didn't like that I was taking pictures attempted to tackle me and smash my camera on the ground. Since the camera was attached to a strap around my neck, I found myself in an unpleasant situation, much like a dog with a choke collar. In an effort to free myself, I ended up punching the person and ran off. When I returned minutes later, I discovered that the short, stocky, crew-cut styled individual that I had fought with was a woman, a fact I had not been aware of in the heat of the moment. Next thing I knew, I had been arrested. The case was dismissed almost immediately, but Sarah Lawrence took the opportunity to toss me out once and for all. I never even finished my junior year. My attitude was, never mind, no big deal, I had it coming. It didn't matter much to me, but my mom was crushed. She had always put her neck out for me more times than I could count, and now I was hurting her legacy at the school she loved so much. I finally screwed up so badly it ended her relationship with Sarah Lawrence for good. So that's sort of his rebuttal to it. However, more students came forward, including the DJ that was there that night and witnessed it, and students came forward on the internet to tell more of their experiences. This is more from the girl who had been punched. So this is more of her story that she came out in another magazine or article that was written. To be quite clear, Schulman's account of the events that night is as suspect as all his other endeavors. I attended the dance he mentions and saw that he was taking pictures of queer couples dancing and kissing without their permission. I talked to the student affairs liaison at the event, who I knew from my work-study job, but nothing was done about it. So I confronted him and asked him to stop taking pictures. I didn't tackle him, and I certainly didn't choke him with his camera strap. I tapped his shoulder and he turned and hit me out of nowhere. When I went down, he held me in a headlock and repeatedly punched me while I tried to get free. The impact broke my glasses, and the rest of the night was a blur. I got off of the floor, talked to the police, who arrived at the event, and went home to sleep. When I woke up the next day, I was bruised, I was hurt, and I was urged to go to the hospital, which I did. From the hospital, I was directed to legal services and received legal advice. I was advised not to press charges because it would be a difficult case to win, as I didn't have any broken bones, and it would be his word against mine. I also felt intimidated because his lawyer had been waiting for me in the parking lot already after my legal meeting. I didn't talk to him, but it was clear that Neve's family had the means to drag me through a lengthy court case. As an LGBT financial aid student, I didn't think I had the chance of getting justice. It didn't look good for me. This student who was punched later anonymously published a post to Facebook the day after the incident, which provided more details. She said, Schulman began pounding his closed fist into my temple about 6 times. After a visit to the emergency room, I was prescribed painkillers for the injury. Another student said on their Facebook, I can tell you with absolute certainty, Neve punched a girl who I and many other people knew straight in the face. This was the DJ at the event who witnessed the incident. He continued saying he punched her and then he ended up more or less kind of running off. Many students came forward, but all wanted to decline to being named out of respect for the unnamed victim and also because they were scared Schulman was sending lawyers after them. The female victim eventually posted photos on Facebook of her injuries, and one of the students said her face was so fucked up because she was wearing glasses. I remember seeing the picture she posted to Facebook afterwards, and her eye was bruised and swollen, and there's a cut on her nose. This was no bullshit punch. He pretty much fucked her up. 4 other Sarah Lawrence students said that Schulman's mother, an influential Sarah Lawrence alumni who then became the co-president of an anti-violence nonprofit in New York City that Neve later joined, tried to convince the college to keep Neve enrolled, but the students started a letter-writing campaign demanding that he be expelled. Several people came forward and threatened the administration pretty heavily to pressure them to hold him accountable. Because he was in another student's MFA dance project, he was allowed to return to campus for a performance, but then was not allowed to come back to complete his degree. The head administrator, Ken Schneck, at the college, said, "All I can say on the record as the former assistant dean of student affairs is that he was a condescending, entitled, reprehensible tool." So that was the first incident. And something that's not really talked about a lot that I kind of want to pick your brain on is that something about thinking that this person was a man, so then that makes it okay that he hit him, but you're at a queer event, so this person was obviously visibly queer and only regretted it to some degree because it ended up being a woman, but then claimed self-defense. What are your thoughts on all of these nuances?
I think there's a couple aspects of Neve's version of events that are maybe a little bit telling, or maybe he tells on himself a little bit. I think the part that you mentioned about how he describes the person and then describes that he was surprised to learn their gender or whatever. I just don't see, obviously it's a way of putting them down a little bit, and also a way of trying to justify his actions clearly by saying that this individual had a queer appearance and their gender wasn't immediately apparent to me. So because I was confused by their gender, then that made it okay for me to attack them when I thought I was being attacked, or whatever the actual situation was about how that confrontation went, because it sounds like that's a bit in question. But then the other thing that I think is really telling about what Neves says about his version of events is the way that he just doesn't give a shit that he got kicked out of school. It's just
it's whatever.
And I mean, I guess there was other people who you quoted there who also describe him as entitled, but
the dean at the school calling him an entitled tool.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that seems to really serve to confirm that description of him.
Yeah, I just find it odd that why was the gender of the person and your surprise of their gender even relevant at all? Because either it was self-defense or not, right? Either you were just so shockingly attacked you couldn't even process what was going on and it was your instinct to just start swinging, or you thought it was a dude, or maybe you didn't and you're just saying that, and I don't know, you're getting into kind of queer panic territory. It's very strange to bring that up because it wouldn't be okay for you to punch a person on campus during an event no matter what. And also I guess I could be oh, well, maybe it was self-defense and this person attacked them, but you have 7 other accounts there, including the dean who does not want to defend him, who are all no, he did this. He was the one who just started swinging. We all witnessed this, and we're going to make sure he gets kicked out of school for it.
I mean, and this incident led to a letter writing campaign that culminated in him being expelled, right? So it's quite a few students heard about this and took up this cause and defended the person who was involved in this incident with Neve, and obviously Neve was held at fault. And so I guess the argument against it is oh, it's a witch hunt against Neve, but then the other side of that is that, well, clearly a lot of people sided with the person who was at the dance who confronted Neve.
Yeah, I mean, this was
at the time.
This was an OG cancellation.
Yeah, before he was famous,
in
right?
2004, before the word catfish, before the word cancel, really. So,
I mean, it seems to describe Neve as this type of person who is, of course, entitled, but have you ever been around a person like this, or been in public, or been in a situation where somebody sticks a camera in your face and then proclaims that they have a right to take your picture, doing whatever? I've definitely encountered people like this in different situations. If you've ever been to like a protest or something like that, there will be people there who will try and stick a camera in your face and claim that they have a right to do it, and they will be very entitled about that, about their so-called right. And so I always found those people to be insufferable pricks, and Neve seems to be one of those people.
Yeah. I think like the clarification that he wasn't just randomly, some of the articles, it makes it sound like, oh, he went up to this dance, doesn't even include that it is a queer dance, and just says, oh, he was taking pictures of queer people kissing. That makes it sound like, oh, he was grossed out by these queer people and taking pictures to like harass them and make fun of them online with, or something along those lines. And like, no, he was supposed to be at this queer dance. Everyone's queer there. It's a coming out celebration, and he is a photography student and was brought on by the school to take photos. However, that doesn't excuse what he did if there were people saying, I know you're here to take pictures, but I don't want mine taken. And so while I think it's fair to clarify that he wasn't just randomly harassing people with photos, I don't think it matters that he had permission to be there taking pictures from the school if part of this was that those specific people did not want their photo taken.
I think that I don't see why, if somebody doesn't want you to take their picture, if you ask, why would it be so hard? Why did this lead to this sort of confrontation in the first place? That seems to be problematic. And then
yeah, there's something like kind of missing from both sides there, where it went from like him taking pictures to you tapping him on the shoulder to now there's punching on either end. There's something there, like, did someone get spooked? Did the camera get pulled? Was something it's very confusing. But that person had photos and they got the shit beat out of him and he got kicked out of school, and here we are.
Well, I mean, the way that the other person characterized the situation was that when they approached Neve, he just immediately attacked them, right?
Yeah.
That for whatever reason, he claims it's self-defense. He claimed he perceived it as a threat or something, but, that would kind of go along with that person's version of events, that they tried to confront Neve and that he immediately responded violently.
Which sounds crazy and unbelievable, but the fact that all these other students and the dean and the DJ all came forward and was like, no, this dude is nuts. And he just socked them several times. There's evidence that he didn't just punch them once, like he beat them. And apparently Neve came out unscathed.
Well, and this is going to kind of come up again and again in the Neve's thing too, with Neve is at a queer event and then now he can't seem to attend this event without being involved in like a queer bashing incident, and then his justification for it is like a trans panic argument that like, oh, I didn't even know it was a chick, dude, like type of thing. It's like, okay. And then from there he runs to a anti-domestic violence nonprofit
and helps run it with his mom or whoever he's running it with.
So it's like it really seems to fall in line with this pattern of Neve, of this like incredibly like hypocritical situation where you're
well, I mean,
being a real piece of garbage in real life. I don't know. And
we're gonna see a big pattern here with all of the situations that I'm about to talk about, where Neve aligns himself publicly with speaking up for the victims, speaking up for the oppressed, nonviolence, while his actions do not line up. And I'm not just saying this one. Maybe this was self-defense, right? But like, let's look at all of these individual situations, and if any or all are true, then his actions do not line up with the values that he very much so self-promotes him as being. And I even have in my quotes here like an example, when the Ravens football player Ray Rice, there was a video of him beating her in an elevator. Do you remember this one?
Mm-hmm.
I can never keep track of like the athletes abusing their wives.
Yeah.
So Neve responds to this news event with taking a selfie of himself in an elevator with his hand over his heart. Like, he's just so emotionally in touch with himself and the world. And he puts as the quote, "Real men show strength through patience and honor. This elevator is abuse free." And it's just like, okay, thanks, Neve. You've also punched a woman. Do you get to be the one to like use this victim's story to like promote yourself as a non-violent? I don't know. It's just like, okay, we could have lived without Neve's tweet. You know what I mean? But he had to like take a selfie of himself in an elevator and be like, real men aren't violent. This elevator is abuse free. I'm sorry, like it made me gag,
Yeah.
I mean, would you do that?
There's something about the hand over the heart pose. I don't really know how to characterize it.
It's just very
that
performative.
exactly.
It's gross. I don't know. Like, okay, Neve, thanks. Okay, so one thing I didn't include in the background of Neve, I wanted to get into a little bit of his personal life, his marriage to Laura, who you've seen her on the show, right? She's the worst co-host. She's so boring.
Yeah, the universally agreed upon among Catfish watchers that Laura is the worst co-host and that nobody likes Laura, right?
Yeah, no one likes Laura. So Laura and him,
which is kind of funny because like almost by no fault of her own, she's just kind of dull, right?
I know. I tried to figure out like who she was before, and I'm
like,
about to get into that.
There's nothing specific to hate about her. She just is not interesting
boring.
on screen in any way, right? And so that has led to like a real pointed hatred, I'm pretty sure.
So, he was kicked out of Sarah Lawrence in 2006. He does the Catfish documentary in 2010. 2012, MTV starts. 2014, he writes his book. 2015 is his first date with Laura. So he's a little famous at this point, right? So...
been on TV for a couple of years.
Yeah. So Neve and Laura met on Instagram. He really likes to meet women online. This is obviously his MO.
That's kind of the whole point of the show, I guess.
Right, and
it'd be funny if he didn't, almost,
He was selling his motorcycle on Instagram, and this is weird because he's selling it and she responds to the post, and instead of selling it to her or anyone, he later messages her and invites her for a date on his motorcycle, and they keep the motorcycle. I'm like, okay, you were like selling this motorcycle, and then the moment a girl wants to buy it, you're like, hey, how about I take you out on a ride on it instead? Anyways, that's how it went. I guess they went on a few dates for a little bit, and he ended things. He said that was like, he screwed up. It was his biggest mistake. And this is all in 2015, around the time that the episode films where the sexual harassment allegations come about. That's the same year. So I think that's important. And they got back together. And as soon as they get back together, he gets her pregnant. Accidentally on purpose, he says. So gets her pregnant. Like, this is just a few months after that first date. And they have their first kid. Then he proposes to her in 2016. Not even a whole year later. They have their daughter Cleo. And then the next year, they get married. And the next year, they have their next kid, who has the worst name in history, Bo Bobby Bruce Schulman. Bo Bobby Bruce. And then they have their third kid, Cy Monroe. I just wanted to kind of mention their timeline of when they got together, because for one, we see Laura on the show, but also because their first date to when they're engaged and have their first baby to their third baby is all intertwined into all these next incidences that are going on. So it's like kind of giving a glimpse into like his personal life, while his public life, his celebrity life, just keeps getting hit with these scandals. So like I said, that first date with Laura was in 2015, and so was the Aisha episode. So did you know, like, had you ever heard of anything about this?
No.
Okay. So Aisha was a lesbian who came on a Catfish episode. And like, if you've been living in a hole and you don't know what Catfish is, every episode, the idea of Catfish is that someone is pretending to be someone else online, and the show does like an investigation. You write in and you say, I've been talking to this person. I don't know if they're real. Can you reverse Google search for me and look up their number, essentially? And
yeah, Neve and whoever is his partner at the time do the normal amount of research that anybody would do when meeting somebody online, but somehow these people who've never done that research have been talking to these people for years, and they need Neve to help them find out the mystery.
Yeah, and it seems like earlier episodes seem to be pretty real, and the later episodes tend to be like actors. Like, it's very clear it's all set up. And anyways, Max, the guy who had done, that was his older brother's friend that had done the Catfish documentary with him, was the co-host of Catfish for a very long time until he quit and moved on. And from that point, every episode, Neve had brought in kind of a different co-host. At the time of this, before he settled on Cammie later, at the time of this episode being filmed with Aisha, who is coming on, like I said, she's a lesbian. That's important. She is finding out if she's being catfished by this other woman. His co-host at that point was still Max. That's one of the last episodes that he does. And
Okay,
Max is
so
well loved, right?
What year you said this was? 2015?
2015.
So like the end of the Max era, 2015 is when the Aisha episode, filming for the Aisha episode takes place.
It's so difficult for me to find the date difference between when an episode airs versus when it was filmed.
Sometimes that's confusing. Yeah, I was about to ask that question, but I'm not sure.
But
Was
it seems like it was
2015 or
filmed,
aired in 2015.
I think it was filmed and aired in 2015. Based on this girl's YouTube videos and timeline, that's my best guess.
I'm sure the gap can't be that big.
No. So Aisha, she's this like very young, cute black girl who comes on. I think she's really gorgeous. It's weird how the internet rips her apart and like will say things like Neve would never want to sleep with her because she's ugly. It's very weird. I don't pick up that vibe. In fact, like, I do believe the parts of the story where she says that he told her that she was beautiful, whether that was in a creepy way or not. In some of the pictures that were taken of them, the idea that he was attracted to her, I do not think is off the table. The rest of it, I have some criticisms and questions. I don't know. So basically what happens, this episode is filmed and she had concerns about things that happened to her during this filming. She claims to have immediately gone to production and was sort of brushed off. And the reason that this came out later is because in 2018, 17, either in like 2017 or 18, she posts on her Facebook about another one of her friends who came on the show. My other friend was on the show and she said that her entire episode was a complete setup and like it's all fake and acting. And I don't know if she was just having like a conversation with people about whether the show was real or acting or not, but she was like, well, my friend was on it and it was fake. And she says her episode, I believe she claims her episode was real. So like I said, it seems like there was this shift a few years ago where they started just bringing influencers and actors on rather than having real stories. And production had reached out to her and was like, hey, you can't put this on your Facebook. You can't tell the public that we are faking these episodes. And she was like, how dare you come and talk to me about what I'm posting about the show when you have ignored my comments to you guys about how I was treated on set and my allegations. And what you got to know moving forward is that her allegations against Neve are for sexual harassment and just like in general, like poor care for her as a guest on the show. Her sexual assault allegations are towards a female production assistant.
So what happened here? What are her allegations? Because I think we maybe need to know that.
Yeah. So then after this, she like felt frustrated that they would, kind of I understand having the audacity of coming at her about her Facebook post, but leaving her high and dry when she had tried to get help. So she reached out to another production assistant that she had formed somewhat of a friendship with from Catfish. She was just like, what the hell do I do about this? I tried to get help. Now they're coming at me about this, and I just don't think that's fair. And she shows the text messages between her and this production assistant, and the production assistant's just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that it was like that. Like, I didn't realize how much you were holding inside. I'm so sorry all of this happened and that you're feeling this way. And she sort of proceeds to ask her, like, do you think I'm wasting my time coming forward about this? Do you think, like, their lawyers are such big sharks and I'm such a little fish? Do I not make a big deal out of this? And the end of that conversation wasn't really posted. It sounds like the girl was empathetic, but also felt like a little, I don't know what to do. And also, she does make this clear. She did ask her, like, hey, don't talk to anyone else about this. Even though she may have, like, a moral obligation, she should have taken those messages to Catfish and been like, this is being brought up again. I think that she honored her request for privacy and did not go forward. And so, later, Aisha is like, hey, like, she should have gone to production about that, but I do understand because I asked her not to again. But she produces those text messages because they're kind of evidence that she has been talking to people in production about this. So then in 2018, she posts a 2-part YouTube video. She does not identify the people in the show by their names. I believe she calls Neve Jack, and she calls Max something else. I don't remember. He's not relevant in it at all. And then she calls the production assistant that supposedly raped her Carol. So I guess we're going to keep calling production person Carol because we're never given a real name. But it's very clear that Jack is Neve. And it's like, oh, on a very well-known show that I was on. We all know from her YouTube channel, she's Aisha from Catfish. You can't find this episode, by the way. Catfish took her episode down. But I know I've seen it. But I couldn't go back and watch it.
Yeah, when we saw her video on YouTube, she was definitely familiar. I was like, oh, okay, I remember seeing her on the show.
Before I actually get into her allegations, I want to jump back because between her episode and when she posts this YouTube video, so the episode was 2015, her YouTube video of the allegations is 2018. Another Neve cancellation happens in between this window. So I actually want to talk about that. This is 2016. Think about the political climate at that time. This is Trump's first presidential time period. Black Lives Matter is really, Black Lives Matter has been around for a while, but this is when your everyday person knows about Black Lives Matter movement and it's really starting to take off. People are starting to buy their Black Lives Matter shirts like Neve, right? I could not find what this actually was originally, if it was a company or a foundation or just a Twitter page to promote Black pride and Black issues, but it's called Melanin Porn. So this is who is going to be responding to Neve's tweets here. Black Girls Rock is during the BET Awards. They are doing a event there called Black Girls Rock where they're really like promoting Black women within the Black entertainment industry, right? So Black Girls Rock is like this thing. There's a hashtag Black Girls Rock. And Neve gets on Twitter and decides to post Black Girls Rock, and I totally agree. They also tend to catfish a lot, just saying. And Melanin Porn on Twitter decides to rip him a new one for this. And in fact, a big thing was that people were talking about Black Girls Rock more about Neve's comment than the actual award show itself. And so he was really just getting absolutely torn down. There's a quote from Melanin Porn that just says, Neve decided to push down Black women when they're already down, and society constantly reaffirms how much Black women aren't valued. We're sexualized and treated like second-rate citizens. And Black Girls Rock was supposed to be an event to uplift Black women, but his tweet derailed the whole conversation about Black excellences. As a Black woman, I find Black Girls Rock essential. Growing up, I didn't know my value as a young Black girl. I was surrounded by white people and their beauty standards. I wanted so badly to be white or even lighter. I didn't feel like I was a Black girl who rocks, but now we have award shows like Black Girls Rock and Beyonce's Formation. It's truly a great time to be a Black woman right now, and Neve's comment reaffirmed just how lowly people view Black women. It was a hard pill to swallow, but the truth. Even now, I still feel like as a Black woman, nothing is enough. I don't get the same amount of praise as my white counterparts or opportunities. As Black women, we have to work 10 times harder to get half of what white women get. Neve's tweet is a constant reminder of just how far we are, but every day we get closer with award shows such as Black Girls Rock. Neve did apologize for his comment, but I'm sure he meant every word he originally said. I always preferred Max anyways. Catfish will not be getting my views anymore because Neve showed how he truly felt. Neve's response, word for word, is, "Thank you, Melanin Porn, for taking the time to help me understand some of the issues people of color deal with. Sorry to all I upset." That's it. Later in another article, he says, "Thank you to everyone who took the time to speak with me and promote communication and understanding. Nothing but love and respect." So this comes out like Neve is pretty canceled, at least in the Black community, but obviously the show wasn't canceled or anything, right? So he got quite a bit of backlash, and then he was like, "Oh, I understand now. I'm sorry." And everyone sort of moved on, and very telling, right at this time, he decides to hire on Cammie, a Black woman, as his permanent co-host, right after he essentially got canceled for being racist. And right when she comes on, aligns with when, right after the incidences with Aisha, and right before she does her public YouTube video about these sexual harassment allegations. So that is all happening within the window from when they filmed the Aisha episode to when Aisha put out her YouTube video. And I think that's very important to know where Neve's name was publicly at that time.
Okay.
Thoughts? Think he should have been canceled at that point? Such an unnecessary tweet. I don't get it. Why would you do that?
Yeah, totally. It is just like a weird thing to say.
And also, like, someone pointed out, and it's like, actually, you had way more white catfishers on your show than Black cats. Like, Black women don't catfish more. Why would you say that?
Yeah, why is that your response to the desire to promote this hashtag? I do remember that hashtag coming out, and I think it was in response to, like, there not being enough, like, women winning awards at the BET Awards, right?
Yeah.
Why is your response to be like, yeah, but they catfish people? I guess that's the only way that he's relevant in any way, so he has to tie it back into catfishing in some way, but...
I guess. It is just, like, blatantly racist, too, to just be like, Black women rock? Well, they catfish a lot. It's like, is that what you think on your show? Like, oh, here comes another Black woman catfisher. Are you predicting that it's going to be a Black woman who's the catfisher?
It does seem like the result of that was that he was pretty much canceled by Black Twitter or by, you know, like a certain part of Black culture, I guess.
I just think clearly he did it without thinking, which I think does reflect who he is, because he's so performative in everything he says, hand over the heart, no violence in this elevator. But this one was like a slip of the tongue in who he really was. And then I think it's no mistake that his response to that is to bring Cammie on as his co-host. Like, oh, you know what this show needs right now, and you know what I need to save face? Let's bring a Black woman on as my co-host.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. That seems to be the obvious response. That seems to be... But that seems to really fall in line with the type of things he does, too, where it's like, okay, you run to like a non-violence org, or, you know, you get called out by Black Twitter, so... I'm hiring a Black woman.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you punched a woman, so you joined a non-violence organization.
Or tweeting about that.
Yeah. Also, this is at the time that he is breaking up with Laura, then getting her pregnant right away, having his first child, getting married. He's being canceled by Black Twitter. He just filmed the episode with Aisha and whatever happened there. There's a lot going on in his personal and public life at this time. And I'm just like, damn, all right, you've got a lot of balls in the air everywhere, and just kind of watching how he handles it is interesting. So back to Aisha Morgan's 2018 video that she puts out about Jack, which is obviously Neve.
Jack off.
So it's also important to know that before any of this, she did put out a video on her YouTube, like she has a YouTube channel, where she talked about her experience on Catfish, just like a general, like, oh, I just did Catfish, and 2 years before this video. And she doesn't talk bad about Neve. She just talks about her experience with the episode She doesn't get into like the production side of it. So in 2018, the first video comes out, and an important thing to note that is everyone's number one criticism of why this is discredited from the beginning is they're two like 15-minute long videos, I think. And after the first one, right when you're about to hear she leaves you on a cliffhanger, Neve is in her room on her bed or something like that, she then says, for 500 likes, I'll put out part 2. And everyone's like, oh, so this is for likes. That discredits her. I just kind of want to know, like, what are your quick thoughts about that? Like, if you saw a video, would that discredit it for you? 500 likes is not even that much, to be honest. So there's that.
Maybe a little bit.
It's an interesting move. She shouldn't have done that.
It shows that she's clearly doing it for attention. But then again, does that make what she's saying not true?
Right. I'm not saying it's okay to do this, but I also know that, like, for one, she's young. And internet world, like, you know, things are about getting those likes and clout and all of that. There's also, like, when your video gets so many views, it hits into this category. And, like, I don't know how all the algorithm and stats work. I don't know if there was practical motivation there is like
how internet savvy do you expect this person to be? It's somebody who was on Catfish in the first place. So is their claimed being on Catfish legitimate? Because if you're internet savvy even a little bit, you're not going to end up on Catfish, right?
Right. Well, and a lot of people say that people who are on Catfish are mentally ill. Like, everyone on there has been mentally ill. They're not in a good place. So does that discredit her? Or
the other side of it is that they're all just influencers who are trying to, like, pull attention towards themselves online and their personal brand or whatever. And maybe that's what she's doing by being on Catfish in the first place, or by releasing these videos later.
Right. And I mean, her first video after she was on the show obviously is to be like, hey, I was the person on Catfish. I just did this episode. I'm so cool. That is a very normal clout chasing video. This one, like, it's not good. It's not a good look. It does not make her look good. She should have not done that. You should not be trying to get likes for sexual assault. I don't think it, by evidence, discredits her. I think other things discredit it.
I think that maybe, I mean, I can see a situation in which, you know, the only real currency of value to this person is likes on the internet, and what else are they going to do with their sexual assault story? They've already come out to the producers of the show, according to her, that she's already contacted the producers of the show and only to be brushed off. Right. So now you're left having not been believed by the people who are responsible for what happened in some way. And then what do you get out of it? You know what I mean? Maybe the only thing unless you're going to go to court and try and get justice, and you know, is that even possible? So maybe she's left it. We'll make a fucking video about it and I'll be able to get a couple clicks.
Well, I wonder if, like, her thought process too is like, well, if it gets 500 likes, it's going to push it up in the algorithm, so people are going to see it. I want to make sure that if you're viewing this video, you like it so that it's put into other people's algorithms. Or it could just be, you know, it could just be clout chasing.
Yeah, well, I think it really boils down to, is she telling her story for attention, or is she making up a story for attention?
Yeah, that is what we're going to get into. And I am very curious, when I tell you everything, what your thoughts are. So she starts out her allegations that she showed up for production for this Catfish episode. And the first thing, when she meets Neve, he calls her very pretty and says she looks like a doll. And whenever I hear very specific things, I think that's so specific. I bet he did say that. On, you know, surface level, him saying, oh, you look like a doll, he could have said that, and I don't think it's terrible by any means.
That kind of jives with her look, right? Doesn't she have kind of a baby doll look?
Kind of, yeah. And so, you know, I like to look for those little things, though, where I'm like, I feel like that's a piece of truth right there. I do think she pulled that out of her head from memory.
Like, I would describe her style as kind of like a, like, emo punk baby doll kind of style, right?
Yeah, and she says herself, like, this didn't necessarily creep her out, or, you know, that she enjoys compliments. She's not one to, like, reject them necessarily. But obviously, I think, like, if you're not normally called a doll, like, if that is kind of a out of the ordinary, where I've never been called a doll by a guy, you know what I mean? So I think she does remember that, and it left an impression on her, and she pulled that from her memory. But then she says every break...
You're a doll.
Oh, thanks, babe. From there, she says every break from filming, he would come up to her and say things like, so when can I take you on a date? And she reiterates that at this time, she wants to remind viewers that she's in a really fucked up place. She doesn't know if the person she's talking to is real. I don't remember the details of the story, if they were broken up or if they were, whatever's going on. She's young. She's in love with someone that might be a catfish. Obviously not in the healthiest place. So she reiterates that she's not in the best place to handle any of this, and this is all just kind of coming at her, and she's young and on TV for the first time.
Again, I am left wondering, is this somebody who is not internet savvy and so that's how they ended up on Catfish, or somebody who is particularly internet savvy and that's why they're on Catfish?
That is the Catfish mystery we all wonder, that we all kind of know, right? A lot of
usually
these
the
things
latter, but
yeah. Okay, so from there, they fly to Houston, and in the airport, she says that Neve starts telling her, I don't think you're a lesbian, and she goes, why do you think that? He says, well, I don't think you've been with the right guy. Do you think I'm attractive? Have you ever been with a guy? She says, no. He goes, well, then I think you should try it. I have a big dick, and I would tear your ass up. I don't think you're a lesbian. You should reevaluate. After quoting this conversation, she goes, God strike me down if I'm lying. And also, so these videos are taken down, but the way that I was able to see all the pieces of it is that there is a YouTube body language assessor person who, for a living, evaluates and assesses people's body language to see if they're lying.
Were they on TikTok, or they're just YouTube videos that have been taken down?
YouTube videos. So I was able to, because they're old and I didn't see them when they came out, so I had to find it the way I could find it. This person plays a clip of her video and then assesses her body language. And I think it's funny because she says right there, God, strike me down if I'm lying. She says that's a sign of lying. And
of course,
I feel like these body language reader people, it's as truthful as a polygraph. It's interesting. And I totally want to hear what they have to say.
Anybody watch enough Cops to know that anytime anybody starts swearing on anything that they're lying.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the things that she says are a good assessment, but it's not. I take it with a grain of salt is what I'm saying. Okay, so they're in Houston. She gets the hotel key for her room, and Neve whispers in her ear to call him to hang out once she gets her bags taken up to her room. She says that she got the hotel key at 1 a.m., and she's waiting for her bags to be brought up to her room so that she can call Neve and say, my bags are here, we can hang out now, right? She says that when she calls him, it's now 3 a.m., and they are supposed to be filming at 6 a.m. This is the first discrepancy where we're like, what? What took 2 hours for them to bring your bags to your room when you got the key? Or was that a slip of the tongue, wrong memory? Or did she get her bags right away and then wait 2 hours until it's 3 a.m. to then call him? So she does call him at 3 a.m. and he does come to her. This all according to her, of course. Allegedly. He comes to her room. Her room has 2 beds, and she's on one and he's on one, and they're watching Catfish. And she decides to post a picture on Instagram with a poetry caption, and he compliments her poetry and then asks if she wants to smoke. And then he asks her if she wants to cuddle, and then this is where she cuts off the video to say 500 likes for part 2. She does not confirm that she does smoke with him or anything like that, but she cuts it off where he says, do you want to cuddle? So the part 2 video, she tells him it's time for her to go to bed, and she makes him leave. So from there, mind you, this is got to be 4 a.m. She says she starts, this is important, she's on her phone scrolling through Instagram, and she says that he starts sending her heart emojis and telling her to go to room 409. And he starts leaving comments with hearts and emojis on her public photos. And immediately her friends start blowing up her phone going, Neve is commenting this stuff on your page, what's up? Because no one in her life is supposed to know she's filming. So he's revealing that she is essentially on the show, right? Because why would Neve be commenting on your photos randomly on top of heart emojis and shit on her photos? So she says she started taking screenshots because she couldn't believe that, for one, he was doing this, and 2, that he would reveal who he's filming with, essentially, right? For the record, she did not reveal these screenshots on the video. She reveals a lot of screenshots. She does not reveal these ones. And this is all supposedly at 4 a.m. He comments on these photos, and immediately her friends are blowing up her page because they're also looking at her Instagram at 4 a.m., her old photos that he's commenting on. None of that really makes sense. Like, if you use Instagram at all, like, you don't notice if someone goes to someone else's page, goes through old photos, and comments hearts at 4 a.m. So there's that. The next day of filming, come 6 p.m. after filming, the crew's at the bar, and she's in her room by herself, and her phone is broken. I don't know if it just broke that day while filming or if it was broken the whole time, but she's in there by herself. Her phone is broken, so she's bored. She's lonely. She's had a really hard day of filming because of everything that went on in her episode, and they assign her a psychiatrist, but none of the crew is checking on her. They're just down at the hotel bar getting drunk. She texts one of the production assistants to come hang out with her, and this is Carol. This is who she refers to as Carol. She claims that Carol came to hang out with her, brought her a bunch of beer, and from there, they leave her room and go to Carol's room. She got very drunk and she blacks out, and at one point she woke up and Carol was on top of her having sex with her. On her video, like, she blacks out the screen and there's just white writing that says, "The details about this rape is too graphic for audiences." Very interesting that she has, before and coming up, a lot of every detail of Nev and what he says and his facial expressions. But when it comes to her actual sexual assault, which you would think would be the highlight of the video of what she's wanting to come out with, that she would give, I mean, she doesn't owe anyone details, but it was just strange that she didn't share any details, or that she would even include that, because there was enough details where she said she was on top of me and I was blacking out, she was raping me. I don't know why she needed to add that, but she says the next morning, they're filming the next day, and she came out to the crew, like Nev, Max, production, everyone's standing in a circle, and they're all laughing at her because they said Carol told them what happened. As in, like, Carol went to them and was like, "Oh, I fucked her, I got laid." And so the crew is laughing, not because they think she was raped, but because they're like, "Oh, Carol got ass, she always gets laid, like, go Carol." And, you know, no one confronts how this is at least bare minimally unprofessional and embarrassing. So she just sort of stands there feeling really, like, not only was she raped, but even if she wasn't raped, she felt like everyone's talking about her sex life openly. So after filming that, the hotel key for her room was with the producer. So she was just sitting in the hotel lobby, and again, she felt lonely. So Nev finds her and keeps her company while she's waiting to get her key back, and he offers, "Hey, let's go hang out in my room." This is where the photos of them come into play. Mind you, the phone, she says, is broken. So it wasn't broken, then it's broken, now it's not broken because she's taking selfies on it. And I don't know to what capacity she says it's broke. If she was scrolling Instagram, now she's taking photos. It doesn't sound super broken. So there's a series of photos where Nev and Max went up to Nev's room with her. And the first photo is her, Nev, and Max, like, taking a selfie, the three of them. The next photo, Nev is making a funny face next to her, and you see Max exiting the door behind them. So he's on his way out. They had taken another photo. The third photo is Nev's entire expression changes, and he looks very sensual, and he is wrapped around her from behind with his arms, one over her shoulder in the front and one around her waist, and he's making like a very sexy, like, sensual face. Very flirtatious. You would think they're a couple in the photo. The fourth photo is the exact same pose, but now his arm around her waist has moved down even lower and closer. So those are the 4 photos that she presents as evidence that Nev was being sexual towards her and flirty and, like, invited her up to his room, and that his demeanor changed once Max left the room. And she is much younger than him, for the record. Like, we're talking about a 19, I think, year old girl, 20, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing this photo. I think your description of it's correct. It's like he's holding her in a way that they look like a couple, maybe.
It's the type of photo where, like, if you saw your partner with, like, you would be upset That's not a friendly photo. It's a very flirty photo.
Yeah, he definitely has he's kind of wrapped around her.
So at this point, after these photos, she says, this all allegedly, he hands her a piece of paper asking if she finds him attractive. The only reason I can think of why he would write this on a paper is that they potentially still have microphones and cameras around. Why would he write that on a paper? But nonetheless, she says, the paper says, "Do you find me attractive?" She made a joke about how he should make her his female co-host. And he says, "You want that? What would you do to get it?" And she said, "Nothing, never mind." And he said, "I heard what happened with you and Carol." And he started asking her for inappropriate details. So, what did you guys do? And she says that, she doesn't really remember it. So he suggests that to remember, she should start to act out what she did on him. And he starts to pull her arm down. And this is when she pulled her arm away and left. This is the end of her accusations. For clarification, Neve never, other than kind of tugging on her arm, which she said it wasn't violent, other than that, he never physically touched her. It's all flirting, telling her he has a big dick and would rip her ass up. She says later in a new video that he had invited her to a hot tub, I believe at the time. I think she's trying to plug that in when she's waiting for her bags. Other than that, there is no accusation of sexual assault. The sexual assault allegations are towards the production assistant.
The allegations against Neve are that he's essentially a sex pest who just kind of won't leave her alone, but then that she was also assaulted by somebody who works for the production of the show.
On his show that he did nothing about.
Yes.
After she posts these videos, there is no sympathy for this girl. The internet rips her apart. She starts getting death threats. I want to say she said she lost her job. She got so much hate that she actually had to shut down all of her social media. And to this day, other than her YouTube channel with this one video I'm about to talk about, there is no trace of her. She doesn't have an Instagram. You cannot find Aisha Morgan anymore. She was canceled and she's gone. So everyone came to Neve's rescue there, but no one talks about, was she assaulted by Carol? And I find it interesting. You go deep into the Reddits and people are talking, oh, I think she's a liar for this reason, that reason. Her ex-wife came forward on Reddit and said, look, Aisha has a lot of problems. She had mental health problems. Whatever happened between her and Neve, I don't know, but I would bet my life, I know for sure as her wife, she was absolutely assaulted by Carol and stands by that fact. She's like, I don't like Aisha. I have no reason to defend her. We have our own issues, but I 100% believe that she's telling the truth about Carol. So I don't know if her coming out about Neve is stemmed in the fact that her assault happened while she was on his show and he didn't do anything. So she's like, well, and this is the rest of your character. You are hitting on me too? I don't know. What do you think?
I guess it comes back to how Catfish dealt with this,
which she talks about in this next video. Do you want me to just tell you what she says happened between her and production?
Yeah,
about
because
this?
I think that's important. Her trying to bring it up and having it be brushed off. But then when she tried to say publicly that Catfish is bullshit, that they were all over her.
So those 2-part videos where she talks about it happened in May 2018. We're going to jump to the end of October 2018. So what's that? 5 months of her just getting ripped up on the internet. Neve has made a statement that he has crew who were there for all of it and said that this never happened. So she posts another video. She deletes the other ones, and this is the only video that you can find on her page. She mostly just clarifies how she did talk to production and she has spoken to other victims who came forward to her that are victims of Neve. She buckles down that she was absolutely raped, and she talks about her past video and people's comments and how her legal advisors advised her not to talk to anyone online anymore, or production just said, we're going to handle this. Don't make any more statements and don't talk to anybody. She does say she received 3 messages from production after posting those videos. She, again, was told by her lawyers, do not respond, because essentially what is supposed to happen there is the communication should be done by both legal teams. So she was told, don't respond. So she received 3 messages from production, but she never received a message from critical content, which is a third-party investigator. Basically, Catfish says we tried to send her messages and she never responded. So they say we did an investigation, but really it wasn't an investigation. It was they sent 3 messages, didn't get a response, so they just closed it. And they were like, well, I guess it's over with. So she kept waiting for something from critical content, and essentially Catfish gave up on her. And so there was no official legal correspondences. However, she does have a police report, and that is still open. The other victims came to her with their experiences, and they all said that Neve sexually harassed them. This is where she has screenshots of this very weird thing that happened, where it seems like someone who disguised themselves as a victim of Neve tried to get her on a Skype call to reveal their identity. So somebody messaged her pretending to be a victim and was like, hey, why don't we all get together on a Zoom call so that we can collaborate on this so that we can like take Neve down together. But she figured out that it's most likely, she believes, someone from Catfish production pretending to be a victim, because if you got them all on Skype, it would reveal who the other victim was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, which would also make sense why her legal advisors were trying to keep her off the internet, because it sounds like the production from Catfish was being less than honest about the ways that they were trying to get information from her or attempt to manipulate her.
Right. And so once Aisha figured out there's something about this interaction that isn't right, she confronted her and was like, this doesn't feel right. Have you talked to anyone on production? What are you doing? And as soon as that person figured out that Aisha was onto her, they completely changed the entire Instagram, the picture, the name, all the posts, changed the identity of the profile.
So they catfished her.
Yes, essentially. She also addresses in this video, people keep asking her why it took her so long, and she reaffirms,
They always ask.
Right. She says after all the filming was said and done and she was on her way home, she went to the camera crew and production and told them that Carol raped her. They already knew and they didn't help her at that point, so she didn't feel like anything else would come of it. If you already told production and camera crew, she didn't know what more to do. She's like 19.
Totally. You already brought it to the attention of people who should have done something about it, and they didn't. Who else are you going to bring it to at that point?
Right. Basically, she's upset that everyone keeps telling her that she's not credible, that production of Catfish keeps saying the person who made these accusations against us are not credible. And she says, how am I not credible when you've never talked to me? You've never, other than when I told you originally in 2015 when it happened, nobody has come to me and talked to me. Yes, I ignored your messages because my lawyer told me to. Why didn't your legal team make a proper correspondence? You've never gotten my statements. So at this point, she wants to reiterate that her case with the police against Catfish, and I presume like Carol or whatever, is still open. It has not been closed. Then she did one more video where she's just like, I did not lie. Everyone keeps telling me I'm lying. Why would I invite this level of hate and then have to hide again all over again if I was lying? Why wouldn't I just take it down and try to move on with my channel? I've had to take everything down, all my social media, and I'm just forever hated.
Does that lead to production getting at her about making a claim that Catfish is fake?
These videos are in response to them doing that. That was in 2017. All these videos are 2018.
Okay.
That's when she's like, fine, I'm going to come out with a video about this because you just publicly shamed me on my Facebook for talking about your show being fake, but you didn't have any time to talk to me about the allegations that I made to your crew.
Yeah. It just really lays bare their priorities.
Yeah, it's interesting, though, that Neve seems to not be canceled for anything, but this girl has been majorly canceled. And truly, I mean, she is the most hated girl on the internet. Straight up. No, I did not see a single comment being like, well, maybe this could be true. And again, I do believe that she was assaulted by the production, by Carol.
And what is it that
I think she's
people-
exaggerated things about Neve because she's angry at him.
Yeah, okay, so it's like people are debunking the things that she said about Neve, saying that she's claiming that he assaulted her or whatever, when really he was just kind of a bit of a creep, maybe.
I think that maybe he was
Or-
probably flirty. Like, we can tell in the photos he's being flirty.
Or is the main thing that, like, you're saying people are looking at to debunk her that she's just doing it all for attention, and so she must be lying?
Nobody talks about Carol. No one has a strong opinion whether Carol raped her or not.
Well, nobody knows who Carol is, though. That's somebody
Right.
who's behind the scenes.
They're-
Everybody knows
they're
who
all pumped about
Aisha
Neve.
and Neve are.
Yeah, and so they're like, she made all this up about Neve.
How do you
And
cancel somebody you've never heard of?
her allegations against Neve are not, even if they all happen, like, he didn't rape her. He didn't even touch her. So he sexually harassed her, and that's not okay. He talked about his big dick, and then he questioned her sexuality.
Do you think he actually said that?
I don't think so. I think that he probably flirted a bit. He probably told her she's pretty.
You don't think Neve would say that?
Probably even asked, have you been with a man? Do you know that you're a lesbian? Like, he probably said I wouldn't doubt any of that. I don't think he went up to her room at 3 a.m. when he had to film at 6 a.m. to tell her that he would rip her ass open with his big dick. My gut tells me no. I don't think so. But I think he was probably flirty, and I think he probably did nothing to help her feel safe after. Obviously, he was bare minimally unprofessional if he knew his camera crew slept with a guest and got her drunk and didn't go, are you okay? That's not okay.
Wasn't part of their reaction was like, oh, she always gets laid. Too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so you're just like not
So
addressing this?
So yeah, it's like it was a joke, not only because it happened, but because like this is something that happens all the time.
And there's also claims she just didn't like how she was treated on set. Like, she thought she would make friends of them. And I think, there was no lasting friendship. She's not friends with Neve. She's not friends with these people. And I think she just didn't like the overall experience. Like, she thought it was going to be something else. And so her anger towards Neve is like shining even bigger than her sexual assault. Maybe because partially she doesn't remember the assault, but she remembers a lot more about Neve.
That definitely makes her seem more like the type of person who is on Catfish because they're legitimately getting fooled.
Right. And that's another thing people just keep saying. Anyone on Catfish has to be mentally ill. She's mentally ill. It's like, was she mentally ill? Was she acting mentally ill? I don't know how I feel. I'm not canceling Neve for this. I don't like Neve for all the other things that we talked about. And we have more to get to.
I mean, I guess if you are actually somebody who is internet savvy, but then is going on Catfish just to try and promote yourself, then that would make you the type of person who wouldn't be unwilling to like debase yourself a little bit. I guess you're like bringing yourself down to low, like you're playing stupid and pretending that you're being fooled by somebody on the internet.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I could really go either way on this. Would I put it past Neve to be sexually inappropriate towards someone or not do something about someone on his crew? For sure, he seems to have excuses for everything he's done. The idea that this girl's doing it for clout is also not out of the question. So essentially what came of this was during their quote investigation for a few months, they paused Catfish on TV. Neve made some statements. This is all ridiculous. My crew can back me up. This is when he brings Cammy on as a permanent co-host. This is in the wake.
So this happens right around the same time as the Twitter
happens.
Scandal.
Yep. The Twitter happens. He goes on an apology tour for that for a while. No one forgets for about a year. Then he's dealing with these allegations and Cammy is brought on simultaneously. Now we're going to get into where we are at today with Catfish and what's going on, and is it about to be canceled again, and some conspiracies about Neve and Cammy. So Cammy was Miss Teen USA. She's a hot babe. She's very vocal about social justice. She's a model. She's done a lot of Sports Illustrated. I don't know how or why he found her and picked her, other than I think he picked someone with a social media presence who was a black woman, straight up. I don't know how she was relevant in his, why would you pick an ex-Miss Teen USA to become the host of Catfish? other than, I don't know.
Who are all the other hosts? All the other hosts were like Max, Laura, people who are kind of
He had
like
a lot of random people. He had MG
or-
Kelly did an episode.
Yeah, people who are musicians or kind of other influencer types,
people. Yeah.
None of which I think I'd really heard of.
Not
heard of any of the
really.
people? Yeah.
No. MG Kelly was like the big one.
So it's like, what is the criteria by which they're picking these co-hosts?
Yeah, maybe she fit that criteria. Otherwise,
It doesn't seem to be particularly strict, so who knows, really?
Yeah,
you
really.
know?
I have been curious, and I've tried to find any statement from Cammie, and I don't see anything, whether she began production with them before or after these videos came out, how she felt about the allegations towards him, how she felt about the Twitter posts about Black women. I can't find anything, because first off, he brought her on as a one-time co-host like he did with all the others, and after that, he then offered her the position to do it permanently. So did she know about these things? It was like, oh, I'll do one episode. Who cares? Everything's canceled. The idea that a Black woman can find a job where the people part of the project haven't done something fucked up might limit her options. She might have known and just said whatever, or she may have not known.
Do you think Cammie is a good co-host?
Cammie's the best co-host. I do love Max, but I do love Cammie. I love having a woman there to balance it. She's got the right attitude. She always says everything logical. She now has a relationship advice podcast. I caught that. Do you like Cammie? Cammie or Max or Laura?
They're all fine.
Okay.
They're all right.
So Cammie proceeds to do her first episode with them is season 7, episode 20, and it airs December 5th, 2018. Remember, these videos were May and October 2018. So if it aired December, when did she begin filming? I couldn't find that, so it's got to be right in that range of when the videos were posted. So she may have really not known about these allegations, or they had just happened and they told her to just ignore this. It's a crazy catfish lady. The Twitter post, though, was clearly 2 years before, so if she just missed that, I don't know, or if she forgave it, did not care,
Yeah,
I cannot...
Was Cammie potentially ignoring that to go on the show or not?
Yeah.
We don't really know.
She was just putting her career first and wanted the opportunity. Who knows? Maybe she met Neve and really liked him and let it go. He did get reprimanded by, every Black woman on Twitter, and maybe she felt like that was enough. I can't speak for Cammie. What I do know is that she speaks about Black Lives Matter. She's not quiet about being a Black woman and her struggles.
Based on the things that she said, you'd think that if she had had a problem with any of those things, that she would have spoken out about it.
Yeah, again, unless she was lacking other opportunities and needed to sort of ignore things to move forward in this industry. And that's what kind of brings us to...
I mean, I guess despite the fact that she was certainly famous before Catfish as like Miss Teen USA or whatever she
that was
was.
Years ago.
I'd never heard of her.
Exactly.
I only knew her from Catfish. So she's certainly a lot more famous for being on Catfish, at least in my world.
Cammie is exactly 2 days younger than me. Scorpio queen over here, born the same year as me. So she is going to be 33 this year. And she was Miss Teen USA. So do the math. Her career between Miss Teen USA and Catfish has just been, I'm not demeaning it, but modeling gigs. She's been in Sports Illustrated. She's been a model. She's known enough in that field, but Catfish made her famous again. That was her big career break. So I'm very torn on whether she knew these things and ignored it to push her career forward, or if she really did not know some of the allegations about Neve. But big news, because just recently she announced that she's quitting Catfish. And so the conspiracies have been running wild because, according to the fan base, we have seen a shift in her mood and her relationship with Neve on camera for the last 2 seasons. And so I was curious, what do you think about their relationship on screen? You've seen it enough. Have you noticed anything?
Me? No.
No.
But to be perfectly honest, I'm not watching recent episodes of Catfish closely, trying to decode the relationship between Neve and Cammie.
So some things that the fans have noticed recently is that Neve got in a car accident. She did not reach out or make a statement about her co-host at all. She didn't write on his post. She didn't say anything about his car accident until people kind of called her out about it. And she was just like, oh, I wish him a good recovery. And that was about it. They also noticed that Neve unfollowed Cammy. And when all of the fans noticed that, he then refollowed her. So there was a little bit of drama there. She makes the statement that she's leaving shortly after that. And everyone's like, what's going on? Did they have a falling out? And there's a few conspiracies. I'm going to start with the first one that she actually addresses. And that's the issues with what's going on in Palestine. Cammy is very vocal about being pro-Gaza, calling for a ceasefire. And Neve is he's a proud Zionist. And all of his posts are very pro-Israel, but he's also gone to the extreme side of putting down the protesters who are pro-Gaza and have said a lot of controversial things. He's lost a lot of fans. He's a very proud Jew who has spent a lot of time in Israel. Their social media has been drastically opposing in these things, whereas they've always come together over social justice issues on the show. This seems to be one that potentially has been driving a wedge between them. What do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I guess it represents like a pretty clear rift between the two of them ideologically.
She did end up confronting this conspiracy and says it's not the reason that she left and that there are other reasons. People commented on her post about it, especially Black women commenting, it's not because of that, it's because of his microaggressions. We see how he side-eyes you. We see how he talks over you. We see how he doesn't introduce you on the show. And her response to that was like the emoji of like shaking hands and saying, I'm aligned with that, essentially confirming vaguely that's why she left.
She just posted this emoji, right?
She posted the emoji directly under those comments.
Yeah, as a response to those comments.
Yeah. And she did put out a podcast.
Seemingly confirming that microaggressions by Neve is kind of what was driving the wedge between the two of them.
Yeah, and she does put out a podcast on her podcast. She puts out an episode about saying goodbye to Catfish. I listened to the whole thing. It's very much about how much she loves production and how well she was treated and how grateful she is for the opportunity. Pretty detailed, loves her fans, talked about everything, did not mention Neve a single time. So take that for what it is. And then she had to cut part of it out because from what I've pieced together, like an NDA, she wasn't allowed to say something. She just said, I had to edit 30 minutes out of this. Sorry, guys, like NDA got me. And that's kind of where we're left with Catfish today. Fans have gone back and tried to look at ways she's been treated on the show, and there's a lot of examples. Him like touching her hair and bonnet. He would always call the Catfish guests and be like, hey, this is Neve and Max. And then Max would say hi. And with Cammy, he would always say, oh, this is Neve. And she'd be like, and Cammy. And he would just like never introduce her.
Yeah, well, I'd say that I haven't been watching Catfish closely and decoding these microaggressions. I'm certainly not saying that they don't exist. I'm saying that I myself was ignorant in my casual viewing of the most recent episodes of Catfish.
Yeah, fans have pointed out there's a lot of incidences of him like rolling his eyes at her and just sort of brushing her off like her input is stupid or invaluable.
Yeah, it seems like fans have been able to go back and like through that lens have been able to analyze like kind of their interactions and find maybe numerous examples of this type of behavior.
Well, it sounds like fans have been going to her in her DMs for a while and just been like, why are you putting up with this?
Dick, huh?
Yeah. And, you know, most notably, the Catfish people who are insane, like the people who are catfishing, will just be so mean to her. They will be blatantly racist. They'll tell her to shut up. You're just a woman. And Neve never really comes in to like defend her. He just like lets it be entertainment for TV. Like these Catfish people just ripping up this Black woman as like, you need to shut up.
And it's like,
she's so hated.
Why did he bring Cammy on in the first place too?
Yeah.
Is this like a band-aid on your like bad record and then you're also exposing her to this abuse?
Exactly. And that he doesn't do anything about it, and he'll just sort of like kind of use it for entertainment and then swoop in and be the one to calm down the Catfish. and she'll have to like walk away with the victim and be in the car with them and like talk to them and have heart to hearts. But he doesn't ever tell them like
that happen on the show, you know?
Yeah, he won't just be like, you have to respect her. Like, you can't talk to her that way. Like, she's my friend. She's a woman. Like, you can't do that.
Well, I kind of feel like I can remember times when Cammy was pretty upset on the show in those situations, right?
Yeah. But then also she doesn't want to be perceived as like the angry black woman. So it's like, what do you do in these situations? And so I think she started to struggle with that. I can't believe that their differences over Gaza being nothing. Like, it may not be the reason she left, but I think it would be very hard to sit with someone who on one hand is like, oh, Black Lives Matter, while also saying like, these brown lives don't matter over here and I believe in genocide and blah blah blah. Like, I just don't think you can sit there and have a show together and act like you're friends and be goofy together when that big difference is sitting between you two and you're both yelling about it on your social medias to your fan base, and then add on him disregarding her in general. Do you believe in this conspiracy? What do you think has ended her time at Catfish?
I believe what she says about like the microaggressions and just the work environment in general.
Well, she doesn't say that, her fans do.
Well, she's seemingly, she left for a reason. She's just not being clear about it, you know, or she's being a little bit vague about it. And that seems to be what she's hinting at without saying it directly. And so without saying it directly, although she did she outright deny that differences, like ideological differences regarding like
she said
Israeli
specifically
aggression,
yes, specifically that she said that's not the reason that she left. She left for other reasons.
That's what she said. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can see that causing a problem, you know. I can certainly see that causing a problem for anybody who felt strongly about either side of that issue. But I mean, she claims it isn't. So
yeah, I think that like while she may feel really strongly, I think sometimes
she was at least willing to say that she was willing to accept that, which in a way is also kind of a major statement, you know?
I think, like, on one hand, you can voice your own views about what's going on. It can be pretty difficult to talk to a proud Jewish person and tell them, I disagree with your views on what's going on in Israel, in the same way that, like, him talking to her about black issues is, like, her voice needs to be a little louder.
I think when given an opportunity to denounce genocide, though, that she could have taken that opportunity, and she clearly didn't.
But you know, like, his rebuttal is going to be that, well, they killed my people, you know. So it's like, I think she knows where that argument's going, and she understands where he is coming from, and kind of lets it be.
We could certainly hold Cammy's feet to the fire in the sense that, like, genocide is not really the type of issue that one can take a like, oh, either side can be right about this type of thing issue. I think that does say a little bit about, like, when given that opportunity, like I said, she didn't choose to denounce those actions. But on the other hand, it sounds like she's in a precarious situation for a number of reasons. And so I don't know if it's appropriate to blame her for not taking that step.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I blame her because, for one, she still made her social media very clear. She speaks every day on the genocide. So other than calling out her Jewish co-host about his views, she's done everything to make a statement of how she feels about it. And then she left. She left the show.
Yeah, she did leave.
You know? And so it's like, I don't think it's her job to do anymore, especially when she's already feeling like maybe her co-host is having microaggressions against her as a black woman. How much responsibility are we going to put on her?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like she's already in a fairly precarious position. So exactly how much can you expect her? Like, what are you going to pin on her there? What is she responsible for or not? You know, she's responsible for her own safety first and foremost.
Yeah, and maybe it's just been like all of these things did matter to her and they all stacked up and it took all of them for her to be like, I just can't be on this show anymore. Like, I'm glad it built my career. Maybe she had to wait for an opportunity. I know she's working, I think, in Showtime TV is offering her another reality show or something. She's got some opportunity. I don't remember what she said is kind of in the works, but she's excited
podcast
to find, well, she's had her podcast, but she said on her podcast she
relegated
has a new
to podcasting,
that her relationship with production has remained good, and it's giving her new opportunities in film and TV that she's excited for. So she said, you know, she isn't leaving. Fans are gonna still have her, just somewhere else. So that's kind of like, now just like to wrap this up, what are your thoughts on Neve? He's obviously not canceled. People don't seem to care much about any of these individual things, but maybe his show is finally gonna be over.
It does seem like, taken all into account, that's enough to pretty much throw away Neve. Hero's already insufferable in one way or another, and
we're canceling Neve.
Yeah, it's. I mean, he sounds like a dickhole.
Yeah, I don't
know what else to say. I don't really know how else to describe him. He just kind of sounds like a wiener, you know? Like, I don't...
It seems like Catfish is still on after he heals completely, but the fans have said across the board to find a co-host that compares to Cammy is going to be really hard, and they've said across the board, if he brings his wife back on the show, we're done.
Yeah, nobody wanted to watch it.
Nobody wants Laura, so...
Sorry, Laura.
She's just not funny. She's so boring. And it always felt like she didn't trust him.
Come off like that much more boring, too.
It always felt like the type of wife who doesn't trust you, so she doesn't let you do anything alone. So she's got to be there, like, in your work project because you're going to meet girls. I don't know if that's a reflection of, like, her insecurity and jealousy, or maybe there were issues, the Aisha incident or whatever was going on, that maybe she felt insecure about him being without her. But she did not belong on that show, and she felt like such a wife that wouldn't go away.
Yeah.
Ball and chain.
So is Neve canceled?
I mean, he's canceled to me. I never liked him. I hope Catfish continues. I hope they find like a new host. But also, like, I kind of feel like he doesn't deserve this anymore. Neve's career should come to an end. And also, Catfish has kind of sucked the last few seasons and being really fake. So maybe Catfish has run its course, even though I really liked the earlier years.
Yeah, if there's the way to make it entertaining
like,
again.
Are people really getting catfished anymore, other than like old people being scammed for money and like 90-day fiancé stuff? People know how to like Google. It's harder to catfish people.
Somebody's getting catfished
I feel like I
Maybe
can't get catfish. I feel invincible by catfish situations, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's a show anymore.
No, Catfish canceled.
Yeah. So anyways, that's Neve. And there was a lot more than I thought there was, and I thought it was going to be an episode about old stuff, but the show seems to be, it might be gone. We'll see. And so kind of felt relevant again, so I hope you guys enjoyed this random cancellation that maybe you didn't even know about.
Do I get my moment to be sympathetic for Neve here? Because I didn't get a chance to say it.
Sure, you can be sympathetic towards cyclists and accidents, and Neve falls into that category. Go ahead. Tell your story.
Neve was not in a bicycle accident. I was not in a bicycle accident. I rode my bicycle for many years, and in the many years that I rode my bicycle quite a bit, I never once fell off my bicycle. I was never in an accident that was in a bicycle. I was run over by a driver.
That's true.
So we do not categorize it as a bicycle accident. I was wearing a helmet. I had front and rear lights. I was traveling in the bicycle lane at an appropriate speed. I was not swerving in and out of the lane.
In the daylight.
Yeah. And so please watch for cyclists. Please drive safely. It is your responsibility to not run people over. Cyclists do not need to wear special armor so that they are not murdered.
But please wear your helmet for this reason.
There's no reason to not wear a helmet. I wore one every single day, but the reality is that it is driver's responsibility to drive safely and to be looking out and to not run over people. Please do not run over people while you're driving your car. It happened to me. It happened to Neve. Please be kind as a driver and do not fucking run us over. It hurt very badly, and it took away something that I loved very much.
Yes, and that helmet did save your life. It is crushed in where his skull would have been, and it is always your fault as the driver if you hit a cyclist, as the driver who ran you over was held responsible, and that did not go well for her and her family, and she no longer has a license, and she could be dead now. We don't know. She's very old.
Yes, I was hit by an elderly driver.
And you broke several bones in your body, your back, your clavicle, your ribs were shattered, your knee was fucked up. He had road rash that literally bled for like a month. Like, I was changing his wounds from the road rash bleeding, like it was soaking through the padding for like weeks. I was shocked at that. I didn't understand that skin could bleed for so long. It took so long for it to like properly scab over. But we are happy to say that Herman has made basically a full recovery.
Yeah, I'm fine now, so we don't have to, we don't have to feel too bad for me at this point. I'm okay, but what I do want you to do is, if you drive a car, and you probably do, please, please, please just be kind to other people who have to use the road. And get on a bike. Ride your bike. I love riding my bike. Riding my bike is one of my favorite things to do. I rode my bicycle to so many places, and it took me so many places, and it's such an enjoyable thing to do. And the fact that it is nearly impossible to do it without being in constant danger of being smashed into a pulp is something that is, it bothers me every day. It's something that does, it's something that's very upsetting to me, and I wish that we could share the road. I wish that that was something that was true. So if you are out there driving, and you probably do, please, just as my one moment that I will take to pontificate about this and just say, please, please fucking don't hit people. Drive safely. It is important.
And change your attitude towards cyclists. It's so bizarre. Like, I grew up in a home that hated cyclists, so I know this attitude is real because I've heard it right out of my parents' mouth, where it's this like weird macho thing where men are like, oh, I drive a big vehicle, big truck,
better
big
get
dick,
out of my way. All this shit.
Cyclists are so
They're
stupid.
always disobeying the rules.
Yeah, cyclist this, cyclist that. You should just hit them and kill them, get them out of the way. And people do purposely hit cyclists. It's caught on video all the time. They will swerve. They will harass you. They'll throw shit at you.
Ask any cyclist. I never left the house and went for a ride, not once, without having some sort of encounter with a bad driver. Not once.
Yeah, but especially, like, not even just like, oh, you're a bad driver, oh, the old lady was old and didn't see you when she ran you over, but like the blatant hatred towards cyclists is so bizarre because it's like, it's a sport, which is a macho thing, and then there's these like macho men who feel like you're less of a man.
The law as well, people are not held responsible for hitting and killing cyclists. They're not held responsible. If you want, it's been said, if you want to kill somebody, just get in your car and run them over, because you are not going to be held responsible the same way that if you murder them in any other way.
It still baffles me, though, to hear people have this hatred towards cyclists in this like demeaning, emasculating way, that you're somehow less of a man if you're on a bike for sport, and that you deserve to be hit, have rocks thrown at you.
If you find yourself having this attitude or around other people who have this attitude, then I encourage you more than anything to just get on a bike once and just experience the joy of riding your bicycle, and what a wonderful thing it is, and how far a bicycle can take you, and the places you can go on a bicycle, and how enjoyable it is, how good it is for you, how much better it is than being in a car, how much better our lives would all be if we rode bicycles more often for taking short trips, and all of those things. If you find yourself ever being influenced by that toxic anti-cycling bullshit, I don't fucking know.
Can I tell you my favorite part about that entire experience, though?
What?
Getting the call. First off, he called me as soon as he was hit by the car. And I had just gone to work. We weren't early in our dating. We weren't living together yet, but we were pretty serious. And so he calls me and he's like, I was just hit by a car. And he says it with like a clear voice. And I was like, are you okay? And
I didn't even know I was hurt really at the time.
Yeah, and this is at the height of 2020. It's Cinco de Mayo 2020. So COVID had been going on
nearly 10 minutes, but I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, and this is, 2 months into COVID too. And I was like, are you going to go to the hospital? And did you call me in the ambulance?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he said, he's headed to the hospital. And I was like, do you want me to come? And he's like, no, I'm fine. Like, knowing it's COVID too, I wouldn't even be able to get in. He's like, I'm fine. I'm like, okay, it must have not been that bad, But his adrenaline had been going through his body. So it was like, it hadn't hit him yet. And, you know, then he gets to the hospital, he's totally fucked up and broken spine, broken fucking everything, you know? And so because it's COVID, even though he had a spinal injury, they didn't keep him overnight or anything. They sent him home after a couple hours. So I went to the hospital to go pick him up, and he comes out in like a full like brace, like full mid body, like he can't move kind of thing. And I'm just like, holy shit.
Wore it for months.
Yeah, wore it for months. He couldn't shower himself, whatever. So, I mean, this commences the time when I move in with him because I'm showering him. So we get through this, and he starts healing a little bit, but like at the point where like you're still totally broken, but you're antsy because you've been laying around too much, you know? So he's like wanting to do things. And I had 2 little boys. Let's see, they would have been 5 and 8, something around there at the time. And my youngest didn't know how to ride a bike yet because I was like full single mom at the time and 5 years old. I just hadn't gotten around to it yet. And so we started moving in, and we bought my youngest, and maybe both of them at the same time, bought them bikes. And he was out there in his like full brace teaching my 5-year-old how to ride a bike. So even though he was like pretty traumatized, was not getting on a bike himself anytime soon, he had the love for cycling and needed to teach my little one. So I'll just never forget that. I have pictures of him teaching him how to ride a bike, and he's like in this full brace thing. And I'm just like, oh, this is so sweet. Anyways, that's my favorite memory of that. And now we've been together forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's our happy little COVID trauma story.
Yeah.
2020 was rough for us.
Being broken there.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right. Anyways, hope Neve recovers, and I hope he comes out of it less problematic. We wish Cammie good luck, Cammie. We loved you.
Yeah,
you were the best of Catfish. All right, guys. What's up next? Are we doing Jay-Z next?
I think so. I think we're going to try to do Jay-Z next. So we'll see. We got lots more coming. We got more episodes.
Yes, and the bonus episode of Diddy's astrology chart is also in the works. So for anyone that wants to tune into that. All right. Bye, Herman.
All right. Ride your bikes. Drive safe. Bye.